Hi, good evening. I'm Dr. Hakeem Stewart,
And I'm Rachel Sinclair.
and welcome to Black Health Unfiltered, the program where real conversations and real solutions, Brock, where, hmm, welcome to Black Health Unfiltered, the program where real conversations meet real solutions. Broadcasting live on Love Bay Radio, we dive deep into the stories, struggles, brilliance, and resilience that defines Black health across the diaspora.
This is the space where nothing is off limits, from mental wellness to medical myths, from community healing to the systems that impact our bodies and our futures. Guided by experts' insight, lived experiences, and unfiltered truth, we are here because Black health deserves clarity, power, and a platform.
So let us elevate the conversations and reclaim our narrative one episode at a time. Well, welcome, as you said, everyone. This is a special kind of episode we're going to have today. Joining me today is co-host, not guest, but co-host Rachel Sinclair, who, along with all of the team at Love Bay, actually helps us to put on this show every week. So she's the engine that is not being seen, and I've somehow convinced her to come in front of the screen. um, Today we have a little special corner that we're going to have for ourselves, and it's going to be called Chai Latte Conversations. Um, there's no chai latte today, but if
I
you
was
do,
really hoping for a chai latte, I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, if you do have some at home and you have already poured your cup, I am with you in spirit. And then
I'm envious.
when I get rid of my my Invisalign, I'll be having our coffee, nice and brewed, or chai lattes, whatever you do prefer, even if it's a glass of water. All right, we do have our bottle of water here, so we'll be taking a sip and trying to get into conversations that like we normally have because we've been around this space for a little while, and we have a lot of discussions, and I think is a lot of actually a lot of our discussions motivate our topics every week. So it's interactive for those out there who are listening. Please like, send in your questions. We try to chip into it, and yeah, we're going to see how this develops today. But I'm really excited for it. So first, I'm going to ask, even though you're co-host today, how are you doing? How has it been?
I am good. Thank you for asking.
How are you enjoying the show?
We're only like 2 minutes in, but you know what? I think we're off to a pretty good start. I'm going to do my best to be the best co host possible and not trip you up too much.
Okay, perfect. I was more talking about all the shows that we've done, but see, she had nothing bad to say, so that means that we're doing good, guys. As that part. So today we were having a little bit of a discussion, and our next guest is coming next week is Dr. Anya, who's a wonderful, a brilliant
I'm so
individual,
excited. I'm such a
right?
fan.
So a woman in leadership, a doctor herself, as I said, Dr. Anya, I mean self-explanatory, but medical doctor, to be more specific. And she really does a lot of work with inequity and racism. But mainly what was something that when I discussed the conversation with her
Mhm.
for next week, she's going to speak about leadership and all the things that we're going to dive into that. So if you're here listening now next week, guys, make sure to tune in. Women leadership, trying to give mentorship and tips on how it is to feel in that position in a space that really and truly most Black women don't occupy, and having to make sure that she's constantly respected and her worth is not tested, right? And she brings excellent work. I've had the opportunity to hear her speak multiple times, and as I said, she's a wonderful individual.
Mhm.
But one thing she mentioned to me is like when we're talking about these things is the role of like support, right, for the Black women in that those leadership roles, right, and how our society supports them to avoid things like burnout and different levels of stress. And then when we talk about it and we think about it, is like, what is the most important part when we look to uplift our community, especially when it goes in terms of health and the struggles that most Black women would face? You had a very distinct experience with that when you did your master's and your dissertation, and you guys had to put forward and the
Yeah.
pushback, the systemic pushback that you had gotten.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so let me dive in a little bit into that, right?
Oh
And
gosh. Okay.
how let's start about that. Like, so Rachel is a master's graduate in
Masters of Health Science
health science.
and
So there you go.
Translational Research.
And transitional research, see? And just tell a little bit about what your dissertation was and what was a big, like, not only that pushback you get, but like how hard it was just to be able to advocate from that.
Okay, yeah, that's a big question. Okay, To start, we initially wanted to focus on Black women specifically and their navigation of the criminal justice system while they're incarcerated and how their access to care is impacted by that. And we ran into a lot of barriers just in reaching out to different people and getting to hear from them. We had a lot of red tape that we had to cross, and so we ended up having to pivot and expand the demographic that we wanted to work with. So we just expanded it to women in general that were exiting the criminal justice system, and we looked at providing access to dental care for them as they've left the system. And we got the chance to meet with a lot of phenomenal women with incredible stories and just a lot of resilience and power and strength in them. And they were so gracious enough to give us the opportunity to allow us to advocate for them in such a delicate space. And the journey was, it wasn't easy for sure. And at the end of the day, we definitely can say that we did all that we could. And I know that they're proud of us and we were proud of them. But the journey to get there took a lot out of myself and my teammates. And at the end of our thesis, I remember talking with my partners, and we were both, all three of us were very emotional. But I do recall the emotion that I felt the most was just relief because it was such a difficult journey. And no one says that your master's is going to be easy. Nobody says that the thesis that you do is going to be a walk in the park. But I definitely wasn't expecting the degree of difficulty that we faced.
Yeah, and then I remember because I was there for
Yeah.
for the dissertation itself, and you guys did an excellent job
Thank
presenting.
you.
Um, just that the pushback you were getting was ridiculous,
Yeah,
and
there was a lot going on behind the scenes that we didn't know about until almost towards the end of everything. And I really thank God for that, because if we had found out about it while it was, I guess, fresh and live, it probably would have killed the drive that we had to finish.
yeah, and then you guys spoke about a need, right? Like
Mhm.
thinking about the penal system and then how many people have to navigate that and the criminal justice system, and then
Absolutely.
the is already the stigma around
Mhm.
those of the Afro Caribbean Black community
Mhm.
that exists within that system, and
Mhm.
then on top of that, we have to put the most marginalized group in the world
Mhm.
within that system, and then
Mhm.
on top of that, we have to talk about the fact that the system was not even made for anybody other than
It's
the
just
people
circle
who
after
say it's
circle
just
after
circle of a
circle of
circle,
barriers
and
and
then
difficulties.
trying to highlight that, being told no, you can't do it. So
Mhm.
not that doesn't only affect them, that affects you,
Mhm.
right? As a Black woman in that space,
Mhm.
a predominantly white space, a
Mhm.
predominantly white faculty,
Mhm.
right? We were saying that there weren't many Black cohorts. Or personally, with
No,
the thing,
unfortunately, of my cohort, it was just myself and one of my project partners that were the only Black women in our cohort,
exactly, and it's not,
which was surprising to see. But
and then getting pushed back because you want to.
yeah.
How then for you?
Mhm.
Because I want to really look at it like you were able to accomplish it,
Mhm.
right? How were you able to move through that? Like, what type of support you had to move through that?
We had really great advisors who were just as curious as us and really allowed us to take control of our project, because the purpose of it was for us to go out there, find a need, and develop a working solution for that need, and just really be able to go out there and make a difference at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And the direction of our project, they allowed us to take 100% of the control. They, advise us to the best of their ability and just let us know that, hey, this is going to be difficult. This, might be a problem that you face. But they didn't make a great effort to turn us away from it actively. They wanted us to come to the conclusion whether or not we should continue.
Mhm.
And so I remember having all of those difficult conversations with our advisors. And at the end of our first year, yeah, maybe the end of our first year when we started talking about everything, or sorry, no, the midpoint of our second year, talking about the halfway point. A lot of our cohorts project, they were flourishing. Lots of things were happening. They were, well on their way, and it just felt like we were pivoting and pivoting and pivoting and pivoting, and not really able to kind of get a solid direction. And so things didn't happen for us until the following January, where we got the chance to meet with some of the women at Elizabeth Fry downtown. and just talk to them about what their experience has been like leaving the criminal justice system, and they're kind of in that midway point before they're fully released. So they're living at
And
Elizabeth Fry
exactly.
and trying to access all
Mhm.
of the resources that they can. And one of the things that they had mentioned to us was dental care. They talked about the lack of it, how difficult it was to access it while they were inside. For those of you who may not know, what I've learned from our project is that a lot of the institutions that we have around here will have a dentist that comes in for a certain amount of hours per week and is kind of in one issue per visit. And you don't really get that much time with the dentist, and the wait list can be long. Some of the women that we had the chance to speak to said that they got on the wait list while they were inside, and then they never saw the dentist because they left before that time could come. And some of them mentioned that they had gotten fillings that were falling out, that were just not really the
Done
quality
well.
that you would expect.
Mhm.
And
Excuse
that
me.
could be due to limited time, limited resources, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is that they didn't get what they needed.
Mhm.
And so they were now dealing with that issue having left the system. And
Yeah.
a lot of the time, when you don't have access to getting to the dentist, or you don't have your Ontario Health card to go in,
Mhm.
you're paying out of pocket. And for a lot of these women, that's just not an option. And so it now becomes an issue that they sit with and try to figure out how to deal with on their own. And then if it gets too difficult, they're going to the emergency room because the pain is too great, and they're still going to have to pay a cost to deal with that issue.
Yeah, and that's where I'm trying to like to move to. Like we sit down and we see that the system is flawed. 100% is flawed. We tend to lose a lot of compassion because we all want to just put the numbers into it, and we don't get the opportunities. It's just like, yeah, we treating human beings. We're trying to get through to what it is. I think that a lot of things that would allow us to realize is like how do we support ourselves within our own community, right? And I ask that because you're speaking to a lot of these women that may not have the support that all they've got to do for themselves,
Yeah.
and it's a hard thing. And I saw someone there saying this is a great topic, and if you could read it there.
Yeah, absolutely. They said it's a great topic and segues into the barriers Black women face in mental health spaces. In the stages of rejection of this project, what kept you going?
There you go.
That's a really good question. And I would say it's a lot of different factors. It was the people that I had in my life, both professionally and personally, that knew that I was working full time and also doing this master's, and where felt like we were facing every difficulty possible, and just a lot of, are you sure you want to do this? Like, are you sure this is the direction you want to take? It was us coming together as a team meeting every Sunday, and those meetings would be maybe 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours, because the first 45 minutes to an hour is just us lamenting and trying to figure out and find the strength and console each other and come together and just, it's okay, we're going to do this, we're going to finish, like no matter what, we're going to finish. And I think the biggest driver for me personally was after these women had given us that opportunity and given us that piece of information, I was not about to let them down. So whatever cost that came at the end of the day, they were not going to be let down by us because they gave us the opportunity, they gave us the shot to be a voice to advocate for them. We needed to do that to the best of our ability.
And yeah, I agree with that. I think that the biggest thing within all the aspect of what it is, and you just mentioned it, the support that you had.
Mhm.
So that's what we're trying to get at. These women don't have a lot of they didn't have the support, and you were fortunate enough to have those within.
Mhm.
Because like, imagine you're trying to do something and you up against your back, and someone going to say like, "You sure you want to do this? Like, you sure? Like, I
Yeah.
already got the weight halfway above my head. Like, why should I stop? Like, and
Yeah.
drop it now? Like, no, I'm not going to drop the ball. So
Mhm.
then, like, how is it best for you? And in those terms of support, what for you work best? Like, who made sure to keep you pushing? Because I know there's some days you get up, at some points, especially with some barriers, and you're like, you know what? Am I really sure? And then you might doubt yourself. But
Mhm.
like, what allow you not to doubt yourself? And before you do answer that, I just want to remind our listeners that you're listening to Black Health Unfiltered on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Please subscribe, like, and share. Download our apps from the Apple App Store or Google Play. Visit our website and tap the donate button to make a contribution. This helps us to continue serving you, our community. Please reach out to us at 437-778-3299 to join in our conversation here or just to reach out to find out more.
I'm going to ask you to repeat your question again.
Oh, okay. So we go right back to the pockets of support.
Mhm.
Like, how did that manifest for you? Because you were fortunate enough to have that,
Mhm.
right? You're fortunate enough to have both professionally and personal within your life
Mhm.
to help you drive. Because I could only imagine, and excuse me if I'm wrong, that some days you might get like, what really am I doing this for? Like, you question like, what am I really doing this for?
Yeah.
Even though you know where the thing is, it's only so much. We're all human, right?
Mhm.
And having to face those barriers, like how that help push you through.
That's a good question. I think for one, my as I said, I was working full time at the time, so I was um, I was an executive assistant, and I was working to support not only the president and CEO of the organization that I work at, but also the senior director of HR, the VP of finance, the director of partnerships and revenue. So there was quite a few people at the table that I was working with, and they all took great effort to really check in with me and ask me how I was doing, how my project was going. And they really gave me the space to kind of just share with them what struggles I was facing and if they could offer any support, whether it was just like a kind word or some encouragement or even a connection to somebody that might be able to help push the project forward.
Mm-hmm.
All of that came out in really organic ways and just in them building that relationship with me and having that rapport. You were also one of the people that gave me the support, so thank you to you.
Oh, you're welcome.
While volunteering with you and in the downtime we're chatting about my project, you're asking how it's going, and you were even somebody that was able to kind of give me some good ideas to help push the project forward as well. And as I said, our advisors, having the meetings with them just for us to be able to ask them what they think of the approach that we were taking. And also our parents, like my mom was a great supporter, always words of encouragement. One of my project partners, shout out to Tala and Hira if they ever watch. Tala's mom, Mama Brenda, was fantastic. She was also a guest on the show. She was one of our biggest cheerleaders,
Mm-hmm.
always showing up for our poster presentations, and anytime that we had the opportunity to share what we were doing, she was there as well. And the more support that we found in the communities that we come from, the more I realized that there are so many women, and of the women that we were helping, a lot of them that do without. And some of them had passions and interests and things that they would love to do professionally that they felt scared to do. One of the women that we had the chance to connect with, she mentioned how while she was incarcerated, one of the I guess they're one of the officials that operate inside
Mm-hmm.
the prison had made some type of comments at her about her ability to, be an esthetician or something like that, and they made her feel so afraid to pursue that upon leaving because she felt like somebody's going to take it away from her.
Mm-hmm.
So the environment that they're living in, and she has a child that she needs to provide for, but the way in which she knows how to provide, she feels as though it's no longer an option.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those women come out with not a lot of options and not a lot of support.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're coming out of an institution where home is quite far and they don't have the means to go home. So they have to find support, create community, and build that where they're at.
And everything we keep saying within that is just all community, 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 community. Like, I don't know how many different episodes we speak about just community
But it's so
alone.
critical, right?
It is
It's
critical,
so
and it
critical.
lacks so much within our own
Mhm.
demographic now, whereas our demographic survive off of community,
Mhm.
right? It survives off of so many different things. And I don't know why we're losing that part of our genetic marker. It's so strange, and I think we as a people, we need to do better supporting each other,
Mhm.
and those who are receiving the support, we need to do better on being grateful of how we receive it, right? We spoke about today about the black business, right?
Yeah.
The lady selling rum kit for $70, like a 6 inch, and like, we
Yeah.
want to support you, but like,
It's hard, and
it's hard. I mean, especially with like this, right?
Mhm.
We want to support, but like,
Yeah.
the gratitude's not there at the same time, right?
I
So
call
like,
it the goodwill tax.
mm,
And I see it in almost every environment that I've ever been in, both professionally and personally. And by what I mean by the goodwill tax is, whether you're being paid for your time in dollars or you're being paid for your time in goods or whatever the case may be,
mm-hmm,
there's almost always going to be like a little margin for you to do a little more for free. And that is the cost. And like the cost for that is your goodwill. So if your goodwill is there, you'll be able to do it. But the more that you do that for others and the less that you have it done for you, the less likely you're willing to pay that tax. And if nobody's willing to pay that tax, then there's no more goodwill. And
Mm.
so it's a what am I going to get for my time? What am I going to get for this? What am I going to get for that? And it's hard to really keep that sense of community going because it thrives off of goodwill and people showing up for others. And if we're not able to do that because we either feel, you know, jaded or we feel like people haven't shown up for us, then the mentality is, oh, why should I show up for others?
Hmm. I don't think we can live like that, though. I don't think
No,
we
we
should
can't.
live like that. I don't think hurt should determine how you show up.
It
I know.
shouldn't.
I think that's hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to practice. It's easy to say, but harder to practice.
Mm-hmm.
But if we allow hurt to determine how we show up, then we would just continue the cycle of being hurt.
Correct.
All right, because hurt people,
Yes,
and
they
then
do.
they just keep hurting, and everybody bleeds on each other, and then all of a sudden it's just a slippery floor
And
of
everyone's
just
unhappy.
everything.
Yeah.
I think it takes the idea of like, I don't even want to put it out there to be the concept of the bigger person, because the concept of the bigger person really drains you from a mental health aspect, right? If you're always the one giving 100, no one's giving anything,
Yeah.
and they're at zero, and you're the one to have to step and give 100 all the time,
Mm-hmm.
you run further into burnout. You run further into the mental health issue. You run further into the allostatic load that can make you age fast, push you into depression, anxiety, whatever the case may
100%.
be.
And that I think is what I experienced towards the end of my master's is that I burnt out from working full time and a job that, you know, has high expectations and high demands, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I was meeting them, but trying to continue to meet them and to continue to meet the requirements of my master's, as well as just the nature of the project that we were working on requires you to give a lot of yourself. And there were some days where I just felt so heavy emotionally and just very weary that, you know, hours felt like years. And I think that is probably what contributed to me needing to take a step back from work so that I could finish my master's and, you know, finish it well.
And well, you did, right? And the aspect of that, like when we look at what could we do better as a community then to support our Black women, I personally would just say like it starts from the concept of how we raise our children and then how we show support. How, because it's very easy to call out the issue what it is now, right? That there's not enough being done. But it's it's a lot harder to change what it is now than to condition what is to come. And I think we get tied up on trying to change the element of the mindset of who is at this space now, asking them to learn. And I could put it to the dynamic of our own community when it goes to senior, junior, men to women, right? It is it's harder to ask the older folks to change their mindset than to teach the younger folks. So when you grow older, don't that is not the right practice.
100%.
Hard to change the men who may not understand how to support anybody, specifically Black women, than to teach younger men what it is, how to then support them. But within that, and I would even dare to say, there is a case that there should be a space where we also teach our women that support only comes from one aspect. Like, they has to have the same dynamic of where two people play a part, right, in bringing this up. You have to create a community. I said it vehemently 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times on this podcast that I do not agree with the aspect that we ask our women to do everything by themselves, and I do not agree with any woman saying that I could just do it by myself. It should not be like that. Not saying that I don't think that you can. I'm not saying that I don't think that it's possible. I do. And not saying I don't
Yeah,
admire.
well, we shouldn't have to.
Yeah, I admire those that can.
It adds to
Exactly.
all
You
of
shouldn't
the
have to.
fatigue. Yeah.
Right. It's taking, and then you got to be really careful. It's taking away the aspect of what is capability, right? And then what is actually need to do. Like, if I go to the gym and I could lift 600 pounds, that doesn't mean I have to lift 600 pounds, right? I've done it. Okay, cool. I don't have to. I could still stay in a good area where I still could maintain good health, but I don't have to go and overexert myself all the time to prove what point. But at that point, who are you proving it to? You already proved to yourself by doing it one time.
Yeah.
When you do it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, as in 10 days in a row,
which is a lot. Yeah.
right? You're not. So yeah, I think it really comes to how we support our women's condition, and where the family dynamic needs to take a step back and relook how
Well,
it
yeah,
was.
women are called to be so many different things, right?
Yeah.
Even as a master's student, I was, when somebody says, they ask you a question, oh, who are you? And you go student, you go mom, daughter, sister, friend, all of these things, caregiver, like that's a lot of hats. So you can imagine, going through something like being incarcerated and coming out of the system and trying to rebuild your life. You're all of those things to somebody, and now you have to figure out how to rebuild at the same time.
Mm.
Like that's a lot to wear on your shoulders.
Yeah. The world is a scary place. Is the most I could say. It's a scary place.
It's very
Uh,
spooky, yeah.
and like these women go through so many different health issues. You're talking
Hmm.
about endometriosis and the
Yeah.
different fertility issues, and then trying to balance diet and nutrition, and understanding why they're like this because due to epigenetics, sorry, and how epigenetics um makes a factor not only to affect us, but like
Hmm.
I actually heard something the other day, and this it was in a class was being taught about anti-black racism, and the guy said, "Don't you really think that a being of the slave master, descendants of slave masters and slave owners,
Hmm.
that how you treat people didn't also filter through your own epigenetics today? That's how why you innately react to certain things when you see them and not even know why."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Yo, that's if we start to look at it from both ends of the spectrum, like a lot of people, there's a lot of healing that needs to be done."
A lot of healing, 100%.
Mm.
And it's really hard to have those conversations if people are not open to them, because if they're not open to them, then they're not ready to hear or discuss whether or not they're actually carrying that forward. And so they
Mm.
could be hurting the next generation, and then that's
Mhm.
another generation that needs to heal from that.
Mhm.
And what I've noticed from my niece's generation, and she and I are only 7 years apart. Yeah, 7 years apart. And she looks at me more like an older sister than an aunt. But I have the degree of boundaries that she has set for herself. I am beyond impressed. Her ability to lay those down and stand on them 10 toes down is fantastic. And I wish I had had the level of dedication and commitment to myself and my values and just my personal and mental and emotional well-being that she has, and I'm so beyond proud of her for
Yeah, somebody's just gotta put foot down and say, nah,
that.
not gonna happen.
Absolutely not.
Not gonna happen. So when we look at this whole idea and we sit down and we think about Latte Conversations, and just give us,
Sans chai latte, but
yeah, yes, without the chai latte, because apparently, shout out to Melba. Melba used to be in this room. She made a really good chai tea, and she did it from scratch. She would get a mortar pistol and put everything together, and she would
Miss Melba, if you're watching, we would love that recipe. Thank you.
por favor, Melba, por favor. But like I think is where when we and the reason why we chose this topic, or not this topic, but to coin these conversations as childhood conversations, is to have the dynamic of what it is when we sit down together and, in the community, and introduce the idea like layman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Layman hanging out is that type of same situation,
Same
and
thing. Yeah, yeah.
we see the dynamics of so many different things that does happen. Um, and of this month specifically, focusing on the health of black women,
Mm-hmm.
focusing on the mental health of black women, focusing on the presence and the importance of women and black women,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm not saying that to separate the two, right? But just giving a specificity towards our people.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think then, with what you've had in your masters, that black women may tend to then just shy away from even going through and getting that support, or taking twice? Because I did see there was a study recently here in Canada that black women may prolong seeing the doctor 2-3 times more than the average
I'm definitely
race,
guilty of that, 100%.
due to just not wanting to be judged when they walk into the room.
100%. I think. Um, okay, I'm gonna start with an example. I'm gonna throw it back to the panorama, the pandemic,
Mhm.
2020. I remember working. I was working two jobs, at the time, and I was working. The main job that I was working at was a COVID-19 testing facility,
Mm-hmm.
and I was supporting managing all of the test results and arranging for the lab pickups and everything like that. So I was constantly at risk and constantly being exposed to people that you could see were positive,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. And I got sick at one point, and I didn't know what I was dealing with. But the whole world is sick, so nobody really, I felt like nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
But it got to the point where I couldn't work. I was just too ill. And I had a telehealth call with a physician. And I just knew that when I started speaking to her, and as soon as she asked me what I do for work, I knew that she was just going to tell me that I had COVID, but I knew that I didn't have COVID. I knew it. I don't know how to explain that I knew, but I just, I guess, I don't know. Call it what you will, but I knew that it wasn't COVID. I had seen it enough to kind of understand what the symptoms and the signs were, as various as they were. I just knew that it wasn't. And as soon as I told her where I work, she said, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be COVID. So just stay home, drink your water, da da da, and do your best to try to recover." I wasn't having it. I got to the point where I called my sister, who is a nurse, and thank God for her and her skills. Um, she took one look at me. She said, "Yeah, I'm going to take you to the ER." And so we went, and they did the COVID test, they did a strep throat test, and they did another test. And despite the COVID test coming back negative, they said that it's most likely COVID, and you just got a negative test because you just got a negative test. And so that was it. And they sent me home with just, drink fluids and rest.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at home feeling like I was going to die, couldn't speak, like couldn't walk, couldn't do anything, but just like lay there and just, let the illness just deal with you.
Take its course.
Take its course, right? And you just pray that it's going to be over soon. And I think 4 days into feeling like total garbage, the hospital called me. And it wasn't the physician that I saw, but it was a different one. And she called me to let me know that I did not, in fact, have COVID. I did, in fact, have strep throat.
Mm.
Yeah. So she said to me that unfortunately, because of how long I had been sick and not taking the medication for strep throat, that I was more than likely going to continue to get strep throat for the years to come. And that's exactly what happened. And every time I did, it got worse. And then it led to me having to get my tonsils out and all that. And every time I think about that story, I know that things happen medically and it was a crazy time and all the things, but I really feel like if somebody had just listened to me a little bit more, that wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have had to do this whole procedure. I wouldn't have had to suffer for years after and wait 2 years to see an ENT and get that approval to get the surgery and all of that. And so every time I go to the doctor, or every time I have to go to the doctor or I think about the idea, I think about that time and I just think about, wow, the one time that I, sought help proactively, I got shut down and I got let down.
And I actually have a comment to talk about when it is, especially those times. But first, I want to let our listeners know that you're listening to Black Health Unfiltered on Love Bay Afro Beat Music Talk Radio. Please subscribe, like, and share. Download our apps from the Apple App Store or Google Play. Visit our website and tap the donate button to make a contribution. This helps us to continue serving you, our community. And if you would like to give us a call, chime in on the conversation, or just get more information, you can reach us out at 437-778-3299. Unfortunately, for most medical professionals, and I've seen this not only here during the pandemic, but more also in Cuba, you are sometimes more your favorite diagnosis due to the times.
I know.
So when it's spring, it's common cold. When it's this, it's something else. In Cuba, the biggest thing was when it was either cholera or dengue. All right, you came in, you got diarrhea, it's cholera. Oh, you think no,
Yeah,
man, you got fever.
Something that's like the most likely, and I totally understand and I totally appreciate that. And I think,
But that's when you look at like public health and like
yeah,
population medicine, right? You got to think about the population. It only when you that's when like you got to take someone who actually wants to get a diagnosis to the point it is like you shouldn't have to wait 2 years of getting strep throat again and again and again and again. And you get your tonsils taken out, right?
Yeah.
It should have been okay. If it's a COVID negative test, you should go home and say, hey, sometimes I know it would say some 3 to 5 days for the positive test come up. Do another test to confirm And if it's still going negative all the time, then I think we need to do further investigation, or let me do a blood test to check out to see what is spiked, a part of your conversation there. And
Yeah, so it was just and
yeah.
I give everybody in that situation grace. Not to say that I hold a grudge or anything, but it made me a lot more aware of just how it is to go to an appointment and try to seek help, and just having that in the back of your mind. And I guess you call that trauma,
Hmm.
or just an aversion to going to the doctor. But yeah, I think about that a lot when I have to
But
go.
that's when you think about the aspect of advocacy, right?
Yeah, and
And how
like
you can
that's when I really
advocate.
learned about advocacy in all of its forms.
Hmm.
And I think that had I been more of an advocate for myself, maybe it would have been different. But at the same time, who knows?
Who knows? That is really a toss up right there when you really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You can advocate for yourself as much as you want. You could tell somebody no, whatever the case is. But then after that, right? Do I need to get belligerent? Do I need to start cussing? Do I need to start getting on? Like if no one
Well,
don't
and
know
that's the
me,
thing, right?
and
Is
then
that as a black woman, that's always a fear. Is that
and then
when
you
you're
get
in a
hit with that
situation,
stigma that oh
yes,
you're an
and
angry
so
black woman.
mhm,
I was like no, like if you were in the situation where no one was listening to you, you would get a level
yeah,
of frustration as well,
absolutely.
right?
So when you ask your question of being aversive and like going to the doctor or seeking care, is that when you go into that situation and they write you off, and you can see that they're writing you off, and it's just you just have to deal with it. How do you communicate effectively to the point where you're getting your point across without feeling like you're compromising yourself, but also at the same time not giving them any ammunition or anything for them to turn into, oh yep, there she goes, angry black woman.
And I remember like when I had I was going to get I asked her just to find out if I need to get surgery or whatever the case is. They did it. They did my X-ray. This is follow up when they for the fracture clinic. Went in and they put me in a full cast, and I went back home. And that
Full leg
thing,
cast on you, tall as you are, is crazy.
right? Yeah, and that thing was heavy and it hurt. I didn't want to get my bed. It was like I live in an apartment upstairs. It was nonsense. And I went back to the hospital. I mean, this is me as a medical professional, by the way. I was like, yeah, no, I just want this off. It's like, oh no, but if you take it off, like we can't take it off. I said, why not? I said, because you run the risk of doing further damage if you take it off. I said, I'm a medical professional. I know exactly what I need to do to avoid it. I'm not going to go and run a 5K. I need it off. It's very difficult for me to even move
Yeah, it's
to get
impacting
that.
your
It's
quality of
impacted.
life.
Like you guys didn't ask me if I'm going home with anybody, nothing. You just put this there on my leg. And you know what? My fault. Cause I just went with it. I went along with it. I said on the food, put my foot in the ear and let him put my foot in this big inert cast. And then went home. And it was just miserable. And I remember the lady saying, like, you have to sign a piece of paper in case anything happens. It's like, woman, just give me anything. Give me the paper, give me the pen, just shut up. Just get the saw and cut this thing off
Off.
my foot. I'm gonna put it in the damn boot and I'm gonna go about my business. Like, just leave me alone and let me get out of here. I've been here already for 3 hours. Like right now, he's trying to piss me off. And and this is me as a medical
Medical
professional.
professional,
And
so
she
you
was
can
like,
imagine.
yeah. And I'd sit down and I watch a little girl went in there who was literally in the beginning of a sickle cell vascular occlusive crisis.
Oh my
And
goodness.
she didn't even know, I don't think this little girl even know she had sickle cell. And this one lady's like, oh, let me just check and see and send her home. And then she got back her results. The same girl went home, but in the crisis herself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't even know she had sickle cell. And that stayed there. Did they call her back? No. She went on to the next patient. You know how dangerous that is?
Mm-hmm.
That little girl could have died that night,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So it really
And
makes you wonder.
and this is like a teenager that no finding out. That's an importance of knowing your status when it comes to certain health
Yeah, know your status, guys.
inflection. Yes, know your status for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid of going to get a blood test. If you got a doctor,
Or
they
ask the
say
question.
just go and say, hey, test me for everything under the sun. I want to know so I could put it on a piece of paper to know exactly what
If
I
you've
have.
ever been discovering that
Uh,
you have access to it,
do genetic
please do
testing.
so.
Do genetic testing. Genetic testing is important as well. Right? You have to do it. If you don't do it, then you might find yourself in problems. But you have to do genetic testing.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the aspect of where we sit down, we look at all of this to just go and say like how like I think it's one thing we have to accept is that the system is not going to change by us.
Mm-hmm.
We can't change the full system, but we could change how we navigate it though. We could change how we approach it. We
Mm-hmm.
could change how we support one another
Yeah,
to
but then you're looking at it's community in a different font, right? It's about us working together to not only share resources and information, but it's also communicating with each other and allowing those who are well versed in that space
Mhm.
to show up and advocate for you and for them to lend their time.
I think that's community in italics. No, we try to talk about it, right, and get it bold and
Yeah,
underscored
exactly.
because I don't know where we even going to to even start. I did say you start with the youth, right? You start with that connection,
Hmm.
but then we've lost so much connection between actually showing up for one another properly. Oh no, I would say properly. I would say consistently.
Mm.
I think it's the consistency that we lack. Because if we have an event today, we usually have people showing up for that event.
Hmm.
We could get doors burst. Everybody, yeah, cool, cool, cool.
Hmm.
But what do we take away from that?
Yeah, it's about what happens after, right? And it's in the weeks, the months, and the years to come. That's where we need to figure out and change our approach to have those connections and those moments and those relationships, everything that we build in that time that we allow for people to come together to continue forward. And I
Hmm.
think that's where we lose out. And one thing that my mom has always, you know, knocked into my head since I was little is that, knowledge is power and no one can ever take that away from you. So
Hmm.
the education that you get, the information that you get, that's power, and that you need to use it and you need to wield it well,
Hmm.
not only for yourself, but also for others.
That's very true.
Mm-hmm.
I do thoroughly agree
Knowledge
with that.
making proverb, probably.
Maybe it's a possibility. As far as I know, when it comes like when I growing up back when Barbados, like I think the values are different. Now growing up, I know as young, like if my mom had a problem with the person, my next door neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
I can have a problem with next door neighbor, not as a child. Because if my next door neighbor come and tell my mother, you
Oh
see,
yeah, you
you
get
are
beat
my
double,
religion,
double down, beat
then like,
double
cause
down.
who is me to put myself in grown for business, right?
Absolutely. Who are you?
And that shouldn't, and
You're a
within as a
child.
lesson, right?
What's it called? Hold a child's place. Yeah.
But no, but I don't think a child should necessarily have to hold child's face, right? Because they you say like, what do you say? Be seen and not be heard.
Yeah.
That's
You're a child. You need to be seen and not
not be heard,
heard.
which is nonsense, right? Because like no, like you should also give little child to have a voice. Just know, give them
The
the
resources and the tools to be
awareness,
able to do it
not
in
even
an
the
age
awareness
appropriate.
of when to chime in, right? But I think it's more of a case of like you learn that just because
Mm-hmm.
A and B are having an issue, and you may have an affiliation with A, that doesn't mean that that gives you the right to be a mean person to B, because B has not done anything to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't have to necessarily invite them in your home and like break bread with them while A still lives with you, but you don't necessarily have to be step out of your own character to facilitate something that really and truly they might not even know what they're arguing about. And it might be so frivolous,
You don't
but no,
even know
you've
the whole
taken on as that
story.
energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those values really, because when you look at certain things like the connections that you have with your grandmother
I
growing
love
up,
my grandma.
right? Those connections, like, and you learn so many different things. We're talking about traditional medicine right now. We're talking about things that we use normally. Those different teas, different bush, different things.
Mm-hmm.
The preschool clean out that you'll do before when
Yep.
summer start. I think it is hard to really
Tried
take
and
on to that
true.
one, right? So it's a little bit difficult when you really try to
100%.
chime in and say, hey, um, this is where this is the answer, right? But there's so much from our community that we've lost
Mm-hmm.
in supporting that as well. And it all boils down to nipping out the misogyny and misandry that lives, and then also how society paints us.
Mm-hmm.
Because that navigation sucks.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, to navigate the world alone without having someone you can lean on, a mentor. Mentorship is so important. It's so important. I've had um maybe one or two mentors in my life.
Mm-hmm.
More later, I had one
Mm-hmm.
solid one. My dad was always around giving me tidbits and stuff and whatnot. So I always had the
That's
opportunities to
exciting. Yeah.
hear some things, and like he taught me, he's like, hey man, you see what I do? You see the mistakes I make, don't make them. Like learn from
That's
my
right. She
mistakes.
said, don't make them.
Don't make them. Learn from my mistakes. Don't make your own.
Do as I say, not as I do. Mm-hmm.
Hmm?
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly. All right. And then you see the importance of what mentorship brings you, and and the connection that you should have
Mhm.
thing. And then later on in life, I've able to encounter another mentor that teaches me like, okay, this is where kind of it has really structured how I think, how I approach my level of patience, like the importance of being strategic,
Mhm.
right, and having a conversation and listening and learning and actually observing how people react and conjure things together, so you know, okay, that next step, if it's for me, is not, or if it's not. And that plays so much into the next level of what we're
Mhm.
talking about, right?
And so does the representation, right? Like seeing, having your mentor be somebody that is, doing something that you want to do, is holding a position in society professionally that you want to hold.
Mhm.
It adds to that as well, right? Like
Mhm.
somebody asked me the other day, how many black teachers did you have growing up? Only one comes to mind, and I've done, all of elementary school, I did all of high school, I did 4 years of undergrad, and I did 2 years of a master's, and I had one black teacher.
And I could tell you,
And thank God she was
I
a
could
woman.
have a
And like I remember
minority.
all of her teachings, her
I've
little songs that she taught us that like really built us up.
I've only ever had black teachers going. I think it all depends on the thing, and I want to touch on that as well, right? But we just let our listeners know that you are listening to Black Health Unfiltered on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Please subscribe, like, and share. Download our apps from the Apple App Store or Google Play. Visit our website and tap the donate button to make a contribution. This helps us continue serving you, our community. And if you'd like to join in on the conversation, reach out to us or just chime in with any type things that you'd like to talk about or have any questions, you can reach us at 437-778-3299. Yes. Representation of teachers.
Mhm.
I've only ever had black teachers growing up. I've only ever had them, and
Nice.
but within that,
Mhm.
the most scarring thing I've ever had was from a black teacher, and I was a
Wow.
black woman at the time as well. And I was 12 or 13 at the time, and it's going to be a little bit like give you guys a little bit of a open curtain to me. And I remember I was in class, I was sitting down, and it was French. I horrible at French. I'm bilingual now. I'm great at Spanish. Right, like I'm fluent in Spanish. It was horrible at French, and I think that up to this day still has me an affliction of actually wanting to learn it. And I had her for 2 years in French. And I'm actually this day decided I'm applying myself. I'm learning, and I had a kid behind me, and we were all a group of friends. But he would not shut up. He just kept distracting me, and I outburst in a very violent way. This was a time where my parents were separated. It was like things weren't easy at home at the
Mhm.
time, and
Yeah, of
I was
course. There's
just
a lot
trying to
going on.
a lot
Yeah.
going on for a kid. And I wasn't talking to anybody about it.
Mhm.
All right. And I couldn't talk to my mom at the time, and I couldn't really talk to my dad at the time,
Yeah.
and there's nobody that I could really talk to about it. And she looked at me in that outburst, and instead of treating it with like care
Mhm.
and approach to say, why would that come to your mind or what's happening and why we do that? She said that I would amount to nothing. She said,
So
I don't know. I've seen
sorry.
you for the last years. I'm really and truly, I don't believe that you ever amount to anything.
Well, you know that
And
that's not true.
and
If
she
you
told me
stand
that
here
when I was,
today or sit here today,
yeah.
rather.
And she told me that as a 12-year-old kid.
Mhm.
And even the guy that was thinking, he was like, don't listen to her, man. Like, you good. Like, that's not something that somebody should tell. And I never really like even let it like thing, but it always kept in the back of my mind, right?
Mhm.
That from at that age, she thought that I would always want to be inadequate. And I don't think that's correct, especially when we go for thing. And this is how we then cause our youth not to want to excel and want to be anything great. So that's when we lack representation in spaces that they think that they can't be in. Because then, if I had taken that option, would I have pursued medicine? Right? Would I have just sat down to think that I just work construction, or not saying anything against the construction thing, or this that's a very
But you would
important
have
role,
never, you would have
but I
never
never
dared to really push yourself
push
and
myself in an intellectual
challenge
aspect. Right?
yourself.
I
100%.
would have just assimilated what society told me that I could be.
Yeah.
Right? And I sat down, and funny thing, like 4 years after I started the same school, she saw me and she told me, "Oh man, like you grew up to be such a great young man. Like your trajectory has been so great. It has been an honor to watch you." And I just sat down, and at that point, I was like, "This fraud."
Did you did you ever ask her if she remembered those words? Because a lot of the times that, even when thinking about some of the things that parents say to their children and,
Mhm.
some of their not so great moments, they don't remember them, or they say, "Oh, that never happened." But, you as a kid, you remember that because that is that's something that pops into your mind when you face certain things. It's something that you can't really forget, right?
Mhm.
And if they don't acknowledge it or apologize for it, even years later, it still can cause pain.
I didn't at the time. I
Mhm.
think I was more shocked of the fact that she had the audacity to come back and tell me this, right? And
Yeah.
not remember that that's what she
Hmm.
said. And I didn't hold much grudge to it. I don't believe I did, but it did hurt at the time when it was said.
Yeah, 1,000%.
And
Because
this was
not only
like
did she say it to you, but she said it to you
in front of like 30 something
exactly
people,
in
30
front of
something
the
people in my
class.
class,
In front of the
30 something
class.
people in my class. So then
Yep.
that was the stereotype that was given. You know, I was the violent kid who I've never gone in a fight at school. Physically, I've never gone in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the violent kid, or never been suspended, or never gotten right up, never had tension,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was not going to amount to anything.
Yeah, that's a crazy conclusion to draw
So like,
from.
so no one sitting there was like, oh, like you would have loved the representation, but I was like, I had a representation, but it came with the backlash
Yeah,
of
it can only be a
not
double-edged
having
sword.
support
Yeah.
within like how you should, and you see it. Like I remember the guy that went to school with me. He was like a I think he had like his bachelor's in music by the time he was like 16, 17. And I
Wow.
remember when we were playing recorder, because I still don't know what the hell I had to learn how to play a recorder for. A recorder has done nothing for
Hey,
me.
listen, hot cross buns goes hard on the recorder.
No,
Okay.
because I don't understand why I had to learn to play. It ain't help me do my taxes. It ain't help me learn anything in
If you
medicine.
can
It ain't
say
help
that
me.
you play an instrument, a recorder, it will always count as an instrument.
I don't. No, not it. Um, and I remember the music teacher telling that kid that he would never be a musician. I was like, is this? I was like, how you could tell a man that 11 years? He was 11 years old, and then 4 or 5 years later, he's doing his cape. Cape would be A levels, which is associates, right? At 16, 17, like on, I think he was playing flute, flute or
Wow.
it was a wind instrument. But like being told that you could never be good at it, recorded to that level, and then obviously like, oh yeah, I know we had. I just had a push. Like, don't give me that crap. You wasn't pushing that kid.
I
You're
think I was
don't
gonna
trying.
ask that. I was like, oh, is that how she pushes people? Like, oh, you're
No,
never gonna do this, and
no,
like,
I don't think so. The only other person I could think that had that type of mentality, like the person that told him this, like that's what he felt. But the
mm,
other person that had that mentality, and God rest her soul, she was the only person. She was a word renowned pianist that actually taught at our school.
wow.
And but like people scared her. People, this woman, I think she strived. She wanted perfection. So and if you're not going to get perfection, she won't sit you down there for another hour. Like, we're not
Yeah,
leaving until everybody get it correct, type of thing.
no pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough not to have a class. I'm fortunate enough to be able to drop it, drop music as quick. I like as minute I got an opportunity. I like listening to it, guys, but I can't play. Um, but yes, like there's so many different things. And when you look at the foundations of you growing up,
Hmm.
right, and having that representation on whatever the case is, like similar stories, different areas, but you'd be surprised how many different outcomes
Hmm.
is never really change. Is really a break in society, right?
Mm.
You had one black teacher that showed you the way, right? And she was very
Yeah, and it
intrusive
was
and
only in the
thing.
third grade, right? So like, how much can you really bestow upon me at that age, right?
Hmm. But then like I had all black teachers, and I can remember one specific guy, and I showed him Mr. Scott. Um because the way how my mind works, I think way far ahead before my hand could catch up.
Hmm.
So I'd be writing a story and I'm like on the fourth stanza of whatever it is,
Hmm.
and but I'm still writing stanza one. So it's very confusing. And he taught me how to slow down everything. And it was literally a day he took me outside of class. He's like, hey, meet me here for the next week. Um, while I'm grading pictures, I want you to look around and I want you to take your time and write pose a composition of what you're seeing descriptively, but take your time. Don't rush it. And we did that like 3 4 times for 4 days. And then I got the knack of it, like, okay, I just need to slow down and don't get ahead of myself, but keep the ideas stored
Yeah.
back in my mind and
He
don't work in
met
the
you
chaos.
to where you're at as an educator, and he gave you the space and sat with you and worked with you and took a little bit different of an approach to
Mhm.
get you to the same point as everybody else because he
Mhm.
knew that you could get there. He just had to do it a little differently.
Pretty much. And that's why you have to give a shout out. I give a shout out for all those educators who
Yeah.
who have reached their students where they're at,
Hmm.
who've had the patience with their students and understood that everyone has the capability to excel to a higher level without really and truly limiting them to what society tells them who they can be or what is actually a worthwhile employment or way to go and pick up something in society. Because as much as I'm a doctor, I have utmost respect for all different means of employment,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of things that I've worn many hats, and there's a lot of things that I look at people that
So
do
have
it day,
I.
right? A lot of them, and you think like, you know what, like if it brings a dollar to the table, that means is
An
worth
honest
it.
day's work is an honest day's work.
Exactly, no matter how it comes.
Hmm.
I think that's the real importance of it. So with our Chai Latte conversation today, we're in the last 5 minutes. All right.
Wow, that
And
was quick.
I hope you listeners today had a good opportunity. You had a good opportunity to get to learn a little bit more about us, and also like I know it's not would have been as health focused today as we would have liked it, but like Black health is not only the ailments that you have physically, but it's also having these type of conversations that you could decompress and and really express how you feel, and that's how you fill your cup,
Hmm.
right?
100%.
And I think that's what the chai latte conversation is
I
that
like that. Yeah.
decompression of being able to refilling your cup. So we will return back to regular programming as you will. We have
Not
so much
regular.
as you think, but these conversations will happen a lot more often as we go on. So boom, you say you're not regular, but there you go, you are, right? So these conversations will happen because I think is very important that we could sit down and have a conversation, and you guys even ask these questions to
Hmm.
us to see like where's our views and how we understand what the values. I mean, like there's so many different things that impact our health,
Hmm.
right? It's not just your blood pressure or your heart health or your levels of sugar, diabetes,
Yeah, it's
or
the
whatever the case is.
environment you're in, the people
Environment,
that you can connect with.
social determinants of health, right?
Yep.
Where your sleep and how important that is, and then how do you feel and how do you feel in the world and what's determined. Because sometimes a lot of these things, like we had that big conversation was happening on social media when it came to the discussion of obesity and
Oh,
fat with the
yes.
lady from the
Yes.
Biggest Loser,
Jillian Michaels.
Janelle Michaels. I've never watched the Biggest Loser, or I've seen
I
like clips
watched
on
a
it, but I've
few
never.
episodes and yeah, I just, it wasn't for me.
Hmm.
I think it was, I don't know, I found it really hard to watch.
Hmm.
And there's just a lot that those participants are being asked to unpack on camera. And
But that's reality TV too, right?
yeah,
Right.
so how much of it, yeah. And so I
Yeah.
just, it's not for me.
Yeah, but the main thing, like where she came from, now, and give her an opportunity to humanize herself, right?
Hmm.
Because for there they saw her as a monster, but now you see that there's actually a lot of humanity, or she's still a person,
Hmm.
and like you get to see where that like apparently obese saying one is obese is offensive, right?
Yeah, it's not a desirable
You know,
term.
people say fat, like fat is no more desirable of or more acceptable, and I'm like, and it's a case, and then someone arguing, well, there's skinny people who have fatty liver disease and whatever the case is, and then so on, and but so it's not just fat people, like it's just your concept of society, and it's like we're not asking you to be skinny, right?
Yes, you
Because
can be
I'm not
big.
skinny myself, or I'm a big guy, right? But you're not asking you to be skinny, we're asking you to go for different health aspects to better yourself. And like unfortunately, when that happens, what usually happens, you either build muscle or lose weight while building muscle, right?
Hmm.
But people look at skinny people who are too skinny, and I put that into quotations, right?
Hmm.
That we have that may eat what I feel like, and then they realize that, hey, let me build muscle, and then everyone meets in the middle. But that's another conversation we can have another try to have conversations. Because unfortunately, we are now coming down to the last hour or last 45 seconds of your show. So anything you'd like to tell the our listeners today for our first Chai Latte conversation, co-host Rachel?
Wow. Okay. Thank you, co-host Dr. Stewart. I had a lovely time being on the show today. It's a very interesting experience sitting on the side of the camera. And for my friends that I had a chance to talk to today, they know that I wasn't feeling the most comfy doing this because I'm not a big public speaker or somebody that is always out in front of the camera, but I definitely think that this was a really good time, and I will be back.
And there we go. Like, not much of a choice, but anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, so that brings us to the end of another episode of Black Health Unfiltered on Love Bay Radio, where truth, knowledge, and community come together. Thank you for joining us in these unfiltered conversations that challenge, uplift, and empower. Remember, your health is your power, your story is your strength, and your voice matters in every space you enter. Stay connected, stay informed, and stay committed to your wellness journey. Until next time, keep reclaiming your narrative and protecting your peace. I am Dr. Stewart.
And I'm Rachel Sinclair.
Have a good one, guys.